some big throws this year. You know, you're no longer the rookie on the block. You know, everyone knows who you are now. So let's talk about training through the, well, I want to say the latter half of the pandemic, but we're still in it. So I want to say the last, part of the year going into the Olympics and then the Olympic Games. Because I want to compare that experience to your Rio experience.
Yeah, of course. So I'm going to start just quickly. And so pandemic hit in March 2020. I was training my mind out at that point. So Worlds was really good for me in 2019. I performed well at Worlds and I threw my PR in the qualification to make the final. So that was like a huge boost for me that I was like, I'm on the right track. As long as I keep doing what I'm doing, I'll be good. I didn't really skip a beat after that. Like my training picked up right where I left off through the fall. In the spring, I did a couple early spring before, or I guess technically still winter. I did a couple of training camps at the Olympic Training Center. And those were some of the best training days I've ever had, like throwing marks in practice further than I was throwing in meets. And I'm not like a practice thrower, so I usually
but you're also usually kind
meters.
Of you're usually a soul, like at the training center were you with some other big throwers as well training.
Yeah, so that's
that's a different situation for you,
of course. And that but the day I had my best throw, I was throwing by myself. But I was still in that environment, of course. Mm-hmm. But I was throwing marks that were further than my practice, further than my meets. And I'm not a practice thrower. I usually add 3 to 4 meters onto my practice throws. So I was like, I'm in shape to throw 80 meters this year. As long as I just keep doing what I'm doing, I'll be fine. And then the pandemic hits. I get COVID in April. Had to take a full month off just to make sure I was fully recovered. Also, the Olympics got canceled. There was nothing to train for. So I was like, I'm just going to take my time here and get back into this really slowly. Started kind of coming back really slowly, working on some like more fundamental type stuff with my technique, which I think was really good for me. I don't think I would have focused on those things otherwise. And then July, I did a couple again. My coach Patty did a couple of summer meets just so we had stuff to do. And at those meets, I threw 80 meters for the first time. And for people who don't know, 80 meters is like a huge barrier in track and in hammer throwing. It's like the 80 meter club is an exclusive club. I think there's only like 100 and something people that have ever done it historically. So that's a huge mark. That's like running a sub 10. I don't know if it compares directly in terms of
numbers.
Bigger.
It might be bigger than that, actually.
Yeah. But it's the same idea of like once you break sub 10, then you're an elite sprinter.
Big time.
Yeah, exactly. So it was like, oh shoot, like it kind of validated everything I was doing at that point again. And then is when I started thinking about like, okay, like that was the best throw in the world. I could, as long as the Olympics happens, I could get a medal at the Olympics. Fast forward to April the next year, I threw 81.98 at a meet in Eugene. And then I hadn't even really thought about the American record until that point. It was like the American record was this thing that I was like, if it happens, it happens. I'm not going to really, I'm not going to worry about it. But I threw 81.98 and the American record was only 50-ish centimeters further. So I was like, okay, like I could throw an American record this year. And I'm not going to try to pretend like that's not important to me. Trials comes around. I did throw the American record. I won trials. I made the Olympic team. Everything was going perfect until that point. And I'm skipping over a bunch of stuff, but I go to the Olympics. Qualification goes really well. I threw 78 meters. I made the final on the auto qualifier mark and only had to take 2 throws. And then I get to the final and it was like all this stuff that I had been working, thinking about and working towards, and everything that had been going on for me for the past 2 years has come to this point. And it was like the moment was right now and it finally was here. And it's what I've been waiting for. And then I think it was just like the pressure of the moment, the fact that it was like the pinnacle of what I thought I was training for and all this stuff. I just tried a little too hard and I threw 77 meters and I still got 7th. I'm still proud of how I competed, but I definitely had a lot more in the tank and I kind of left the competition dissatisfied because it's tough having that goal in mind and working towards it for so long and then having it not go the way you wanted. But I think that's also part of the reason it didn't go the way I wanted. I talked with Lance Deal afterwards, who was the previous American record holder, and he was talking about like tunnel vision, where you can't set your goals so that it's just you and the end of the tunnel. Like you have to be able to punch out of the walls and see some light every now and then. And it made me realize that I had been training for a year and a half with tunnel vision of just like, I just got to get to that point. I got to get to the end of the tunnel and then everything will be fine. And then I got to the end of the tunnel and I realized like there's more work for me to do past that point, if that makes sense.